Hey guys, this is Gatsby with Tape, and today you join me for another one of my videos about crazy big inventions. And today we're building an artificial gravity ring with a diameter of 1 kilometer, carrying on with my kind of 1 kilometer space station type thing. So we're starting by putting a probe core down there, attaching a one of these giant fuel tanks to it, and scaling it up with tweak scale so that it's as big as possible. And then we're building out the beams, well, I guess sort of the spokes that'll hold the wheel. You're seeing that I'm having a little bit of trouble kind of connecting this because I thought I couldn't like offset the part of the ship that much. It turns out I wasn't offsetting the root part, so I had a really hard time building it. You can see I tried to offset it there, but because the probe underneath this is the root part, yeah, it didn't work. But yeah, you can see that I'm starting to kind of build the rings right now. Can't launch it like this because it's a bit like a symbol that was used by some really bad people. So we're going to start curving this to make it a circle, not a swastika. And yes. So I thought I'd just put the building thing in here just in case you wanted to build a giant ring yourself. This actually isn't the ring I ended up using because it doesn't quite match up like the one I built previously. But yeah, you can see that once I've done that, I just start copying these things and having trouble trying to rotate this the right way. I just couldn't figure it out for some reason. And yeah, but eventually, apparently not. Okay, I'll just curve it more. But yeah, eventually I do end up building something like a ring, and you can see how this is done. Now, if you wanted to do this yourself, I'd suggest doing it in the actual spaceplane hangar, because then you can move around more easily, and also offsetting the root part, not just some random part, because you can see I can't offset it much because I'm not offsetting the root part. And also you will need the mod hangar extender, which I'm using to, you know, extend the hangar, so I don't have to try and do this all in the VAB. Anyway, this is probably going to be the first video in maybe maybe like a set of 3 of trying to build big rings, because every time I build a big space station, someone's like, build a ring around Kerbal. Oh, and you can see I've just loaded up the ring I built earlier, which looks somewhat nicer. Yeah, people are like, build a ring around Kerbal, and I'm like, okay, that 1 kilometer space station was like 1,000 parts, and I'd need like 3,600 of them to do that, so I'm not going to do that. But maybe I'd build one around Gilly. So this is kind of the first test in seeing if I could build a ring big enough to surround Gilly. You can see this circle is not very circular. It's pretty hard to tell. I've kind of cheated it into space, even using the cheat menu, which you access by hitting Alt and F12, just to see how circular it was, and it really wasn't very circular. You can see it looks horrible. So I am going to go and fix that a little bit. We're also going to experiment with artificial gravity today, because might as well, I'm building a gravity ring. I'm not just going to have a big circle in space. But yeah, then I kind of jokingly think, this would be a good thumbnail. That horrible looking ring, which is somehow not even on each side. I don't know how it's this bad, but anyway, I do a new build, and it's somewhat more circular. It's not perfect. Something's messed up somewhere, but it looks pretty good. And this is actually 1,200 meters wide now, not 1 kilometer wide. So yeah, so we have our basic ring, and it works, except that it kind of shakes a bit. It starts to sort of shake a little. I am using auto strutting, but you've got to kind of figure out the best auto strutting strategy for this, and you can start to see that yeah, the auto strutting wasn't holding it together very well, and it starts to shake and flail and wave its arms around and turn into maybe a bit of a Nazi symbol for a while, but then it just explodes and kind of krakens out, trying to become the Kraken, and then the world ends. So we tried again with a little better strutting, and what I did was I auto strut things to the grandparent part, not the root part, and that seems to give it a more kind of sound structure, which is pretty nice. So yes, the ring basically works. It is possible to build a 1 kilometer wide ring using tweak scale and hangar extender, and that's, I think, all the mods I used for this. And yeah, with a little bit of auto strutting, it works. So anyway, what am I doing here? Oh yes! To make it a gravity ring, you need to spin it. So I attached some scaled up vector engines with a few fuel tanks on it, and started spinning the ring to see if it could endure the forces of spinning, and initially it looks quite good. Then I speed it up a little more, and it starts to shake crazily. Now this is because, although it is auto-strutted, each end of the kind of circle quarter isn't attached to the next circle quarter, if that makes sense. So nothing's really holding it all together. So yeah, it starts to kind of freak out. I fire up the engines anyway, just to kind of mess around. But eventually I strut everything together, and it rotates nicely without crazily fucking around and trying to kill me or trying to kraken out, and everything is good. And this is working with no cheats on. No unbreakable joints, no crash damage, and all is good. So yes, we have ourselves a ring. Now, it would be nice to test if the gravity works. So we have ourselves a little rover. Now, this turned out to be much harder than I thought it would be. And you can see initially it's just sort of sliding off the side. The ring is spinning very slowly, and you can see it's actually being slightly pulled towards the ring when it touches it, of course, because this is using centrifugal force. And it doesn't work if you're not touching it. That kind of mind-fucked me, because I was doing this at 3 AM. I was like, how does it know when to experience gravity? But of course, basically when you're on the ring, it's providing an outward force when you're spinning because you're being pulled along and swung almost like a pendulum, but it's countered by the inward force of colliding with the loop itself. Anyway, so this takes a few tries to get anywhere near right, and you can see that I'm detaching this little rover. I actually even built a little garage right there, and it is, I think, spinning right now. And we are sliding off, though, and it does have better RCS. We also built a rover, actually, in the spaceplane hangar. The first one was built in the VAB, and it didn't really work. But yeah, you see, the second I touch it, it kind of just slips off and is being sort of crazy. And yeah, we're just floating, and you get a nice actual kind of view of the ring here. However, I noticed, this is just kind of an interlude right here, I noticed something's coming towards me quite fast, and it turns out I left one of the rings in orbit in a hacked gravity orbit, so it's traveling 2 kilometers a second slower than us, so it kind of flies by, zones through our ring, and flies past. Yeah, that's nothing really to do with the main part of the video, but I thought it was kind of cool. And then we have another weird situation where I hack another one into orbit, and there's another ring just there. Apparently I'm not deleting my rings, and yeah, it's moving pretty fast and sort of collides with the other ring, and things start exploding. So yeah, there were lots of problems building this. Firstly, the rovers didn't seem to stick to the surface very well, and partly there were a lot of kind of orbital collisions, which yeah, not super great. Anyway, so now you can see that I'm spinning it, and I've built myself a little kind of wall thing to try and hold it in. And you can see this is actually experiencing gravity. It is stuck to the ring, and it is moving. It is wanting to go off to the side for whatever reason, but it is actually on the ring, and then it slips off and goes to just wherever. But still, that's a good demonstration. The gravity does work. It needs a little bit of coercing. Now, the main problem with this is I was actually controlling from a piece of metal pointing downward, not the probe facing forward. And I think right here is where I figure it out. Although this is weird. It kind of gets flung above the surface and sort of meets up with it later. But then I start to realize that the wheels aren't turning the right way. And of course, it's because it's not being controlled from the right place. The nice thing about having a really big gravity ring is you don't have to spin it as fast, which means if you're next to a planet, you don't experience such a kind of horrible flashing of the planet, and that's, you know, kind of important. Anyway, so yes, we've figured it out. We're spinning it up now, and we're controlling from the right place, and we've included ourselves a little accelerometer so we can drive down here, and it's very controllable, and we can see the force of gravity we're experiencing. That's kind of 0.4 G's stationary, and when I speed up, the force gets bigger because, of course, I'm traveling faster. And we actually get up to about a G briefly until I kind of flip over and I'm stuck to the gravity ring, which is good because it shows that I can be pinned by the gravity, so it's clearly working. But then I get a cool idea. Maybe I'll fire up the engines on the ring and slowly increase the speed of the spin, and just kind of watch the gravity rise. You can see over there on the right, we've got the accelerometer open, and it's slowly kind of increasing its the G's it's experiencing. We've just hit 1 G right there, and then a little later we see it getting up to 2 or 3 G's, and as it's spinning faster and faster, and the outward force is getting larger and larger, and eventually it gets up to just I think just under 13 G's before the engines cut out. And yes, so at maximum spin, it spins at we experience 13 G's while stationary, which is pretty cool because it's a very big ring, and if you have a big ring, you know, as I said, you don't have to spin it as fast. You can see I'm actually very high above Kerbal. This is important because you want your surface velocity to be very low because the wheels kind of figure out what they should be experiencing based on their surface velocity. So I thought it would be, well, so if you go up to geostationary orbit, you're at you're at zero surface velocity, so the wheels act fairly normally. I tried the rover thing a few more times, but it doesn't really work very consistently. Most of the time I just get flung out of the spacecraft. Flung out of the ring, even. Anyway, at this point I was kind of tired of this ring not letting me drive on it properly, which was kind of my main goal, but we got some cool stuff out of it. But anyway, I decided we're going to burn this ring up, because that's what I do with all my giant spacecraft, and luckily this is only like 300 or 400 parts. So what I did was I hacked gravity, set my orbit so I was travelling very slowly, unhacked gravity so I was no longer in orbit, and watched myself fall back to the planet, because it's always fun to watch these things burn up. And given this isn't like 2,000 parts like the 2-kilometer space station, it should be pretty cool to see. And I will actually turn those cheats off so that it does burn up properly and explode. And we'll see how much of it gets to the ground. It'll crash into the desert, which is a good place to crash satellites, you know? It's just, yeah. But yeah, I thought this was a fairly interesting experiment. You can indeed do artificial gravity in Kerbal space program. I think I've seen videos on it before, but I just want the main thing was building the really big ring, because people always ask me to build a ring around Kerbal, and that's never going to happen. That would be too many parts, even with these scaled up things. Gilly might be possible, so I may at some point build a kind of, not a Dyson sphere, but kind of just a ring around, all the way around Gilly, which I guess would be pretty cool, just to see if it's possible. This kind of thing, this 1-kilometer size ring, is extremely possible, especially with tweak scale, and it's actually, yeah, possible to do a little bit of artificial gravity. Maybe if I'd built that kind of corridor all the way around a ring, we could have driven forever, but it was not to be today, I guess. But now we're getting nice and close to the atmosphere, traveling at kind of, I think, what, like 2,700 meters per second straight down. And we'll get to see it all, oh no, more like 2,900 meters per second. It'll probably be almost 3,000 meters per second when we hit the atmosphere. And it will go down very quickly. I've started to spin it up, because why not? And you can see it's starting to pick up heat quite quickly. Things will start to explode soon, probably the engines and fuel tanks and little pieces of metal first, and then eventually the ring itself. The ring's quite bulky like this. It's much better with, maybe I could probably build like a fucking 10-kilometer space station with tweak scale. I never really thought about that. But yeah, you can see the big parts are kind of breaking off now, and we switch to some, and they start to just sort of explode, and then a few of the bigger parts actually start flying. You can see some of them are traveling in kind of lateral directions because they're picking up lift, because these parts do experience lift in Kerbal Space Program. And some of the parts are even sort of bouncing, obviously exploding a bit, and then sort of bouncing. I think this one will just explode. Oh no, it's actually surprisingly okay. And then we get to be on the big bit of the ring, the one with the metal, and this is flying just up and sideways, because, I don't know, KSP physics are kind of janky, but it's pretty cool to see. So yeah, anyway, this is the end of the video. I hope you have enjoyed this. A bit of a, sort of just another one of these kind of casual, see if you can do crazy things in Kerbal Space Program. But everyone always asks me to build rings, and I would like to build one around Gilly one day. And yes, artificial gravity. We can get up to kind of, well, we could get up to infinite G's if I'd brought more fuel. But yeah, anyway, like I said, I hope you've enjoyed this, and this is the end of the video now. But if you want to go check out a couple more videos, there is a video in which I built a 2-kilometer long space station. There's also my most recent episode of Fall of Kerbin, in which me and the Beardy Penguin have a war on Kerbin. And there's also links to my Twitter, Twitch, and Patreon in the description, if you're interested. But as always, I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been KSP with Tape. I will see you next time.